$32,999. That's the MSRP for the 2026 Harley-Davidson Street Glide Limited, Harley's rebranded version of what used to be called the Ultra Limited. $33,000 before dealer markup, before destination charges, before prep fees, before taxes, before license and registration, before the extended warranty they'll pressure you to buy, before the wheel and tire protection plan, before the mandatory dealer-installed accessories. Out the door, you're paying $36,000 to $38,000 for a motorcycle that's fundamentally identical to the bike Harley sold for $27,000 5 years ago, with minor cosmetic updates and a new name. While sales collapsed 27.7%, while 200 dealers closed their doors permanently, while used street glides from 2023 sit on the market for $19,000 to $22,000 and can't find buyers, Harley-Davidson is raising prices to levels that make zero economic sense, pricing themselves completely out of the market and accelerating their own death spiral. If you want to understand why Harley's pricing strategy is financial suicide, why nobody's buying these bikes at these prices, what competitors offer for the same money, and why this delusional pricing guarantees Harley's collapse, hit like and subscribe, because we're about to break down the math that proves Harley-Davidson has completely lost touch with reality. Let's start with the actual numbers so there's no confusion about what Harley is charging. The 2026 Street Glide Limited, the bike formerly known as the Ultra Limited, before Harley decided to rebrand their entire touring lineup for 2026, starts at $32,999 MSRP. That's the manufacturer's suggested retail price before anything else gets added. The 2026 Street Glide Special, which is the mid-level bagger without the tour pack and some other features, starts at $31,499. The base 2026 Street Glide Standard, the entry point to the Street Glide family, starts at $28,999. The 2026 Road Glide Special, the frame-mounted fairing alternative, starts at $31,999. The 2026 CVO Street Glide 3 Limited, the top-of-the-line factory custom, starts at $51,999, over $52,000 for a motorcycle. These aren't luxury touring bikes with advanced technology, sophisticated electronics, or cutting-edge engineering. These are air-cooled pushrod V-twin cruisers with technology that's fundamentally decades old, wrapped in fiberglass bodywork and covered in chrome. The Milwaukee 8 engine is an evolution of designs dating back to the shovelhead. The chassis is steel tube construction that hasn't changed fundamentally in 30 years. The suspension is basic telescopic, forks and twin rear shocks. The brakes are adequate but not exceptional. The electronics are modern but not class-leading compared to competitors. You're paying $33,000 to $52,000 for heritage and brand image, not for technological superiority or exceptional value. Now, let's add up what these bikes actually cost out the door, because MSRP is just the starting point of the financial pain. Harley charges destination and handling fees, typically around $850 to $1,000, depending on your location, to ship the bike from the factory to the dealer. That's pure profit for Harley, disguised as a fee. Dealers add prep and setup charges ranging from $500 to $1,500 to uncrate the bike, remove shipping materials, fill it with fluids, and perform pre-delivery inspection that takes maybe 90 minutes of technician time. That's almost pure profit markup for work that costs the dealer $150 to $200 in labor. Dealers in many states charge documentation fees ranging from $200 to $600 to process paperwork that takes 15 minutes, another pure profit fee. Then you have taxes which vary by state but average 7 to 9% on the purchase price, adding another $2,300 to $3,000 to a $33,000 bike. License and registration add another couple hundred, depending on your state. Title fees add another $50 to $100. Before you've added a single accessory or bought a single piece of gear, the $32,999 Street Glide Limited is now costing you $37,000 to $39,000 out the door, depending on your state and dealer. And dealers aren't done extracting money yet. They'll push hard for extended warranties, claiming the factory 2-year coverage isn't enough and that Harleys are expensive to repair. Extended warranty packages run $1,500 to $3,000 depending on length and coverage. wheel and tire protection plans, gap insurance if you're financing, maintenance packages, all designed to pad the dealer's profit on every transaction. By the time you're riding away, you might have $40,000 to $42,000 invested in a Street Glide Limited that will be worth $28,000 to $30,000 in 3 years based on current depreciation curves. The price increases from 2025 to 2026 are particularly offensive when you look at what changed and what didn't. The 2025 Street Glide Standard had an MSRP of $27,999. The 2026 Street Glide Standard is $28,999, a $1,000 increase or 3.57%. What did you get for that extra $1,000? New paint colors, minor trim updates, essentially nothing of substance. The engine is the same Milwaukee 8 107 or 117 depending on model. The chassis is unchanged. The suspension is unchanged. The brakes are unchanged. The electronics received minor software updates. You're paying $1,000 more for virtually the same motorcycle with a 2026 VIN instead of a 2025 VIN. The Heritage Classic got hit even harder. The 2025 Heritage Classic was $21,499. The 2026 Heritage Classic is $23,499, a $2,000 increase or 9.3%. Harley's justification is that the 2026 Heritage now comes standard with the 117 cubic inch engine instead of the 107. But that engine displacement increase costs Harley maybe $300 in additional manufacturing costs for larger pistons and cylinders. They're charging customers $2,000 more for a $300 upgrade, a 667% markup on the improvement, and the 107 engine was already adequate for that bike. The 117 is overkill that most Heritage buyers didn't ask for and don't need, but now have to pay for whether they want it or not. The Lowrider S went from $19,999 in 2025 to $21,499 in 2026, a $1,500 increase or 7.5%. The Fat Boy went from $21,999 to $23,999, a $2,000 increase or 9.09%. Across Harley's entire 2026 lineup, prices increased an average of 5 to 7%, with some models seeing increases approaching 10%. During this same period, inflation in the United States was running around 3 to 3.5% annually. Harley's price increases are double the inflation rate, meaning they're taking real price increases far above their cost increases, attempting to extract more profit per unit to offset declining sales volumes. This is classic death spiral. Pricing. When sales volumes decline, fixed costs per unit increase because you're spreading overhead across fewer bikes. To maintain profit margins, you raise prices. But higher prices suppress demand further, causing more volume decline, which increases costs per unit more, requiring more price increases. It's a vicious cycle that accelerates until the business collapses completely. Harley is deep into this spiral. They sold over 350,000 motorcycles globally at their peak in 2006. They're now selling around 200,000 annually, a 43% decline. Each bike now has to carry 43% more overhead burden. But customers won't pay 43% more, so Harley tries to sneak in 5 to 10% annual increases, hoping customers won't notice or won't care. But customers absolutely notice, they absolutely care, and they're voting with their wallets by not buying. Let's compare what you get for $33,000 if you don't buy the Harley Street Glide Limited. Indian Motorcycles 2026 Challenger Limited, the direct competitor to the Street Glide Limited, starts at around $34,000 to $35,000 depending on specific trim. For that marginally higher or equivalent price, you get a liquid-cooled 108 cubic inch Power Plus engine, making 108 horsepower and 128 pound-feet of torque, compared to the Milwaukee 8 117's 90 to 95 horsepower and 115 to 120 pound-feet. The Indian makes more power, stays cooler, and is more sophisticated. You get a touchscreen infotainment system that's larger, more intuitive, and more feature-rich than Harley's Boombox G. You get standard rider modes, cornering ABS, cornering traction control, and advanced safety features that are optional or unavailable on the Harley. You get fit and finish quality that reviewers consistently rate as equal or superior to Harley. And you Get a bike that looks distinctive and modern rather than virtually identical to Harley's from 10 or 20 years ago. Honda's Goldwing, the legendary touring benchmark, starts at $25,500 for the base manual transmission model or $26,500 for the DCT automatic. For $6,000 to $7,000 less than the Street Glide Limited, you get a 1,833 cubic centimeters horizontally opposed six-cylinder engine, making 125 horsepower and 125 pound-feet of torque, dramatically more than the Harley. You get butter-smooth power delivery from 6 cylinders versus the vibration and torque pulses from Harley's Big Twin. You get a 7-speed DCT automatic transmission if you want it, technology Harley doesn't offer. You get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wireless compatibility, features Harley charges extra for. You get superior weather protection, more storage capacity, better ergonomics for long-distance riding, and legendary Honda reliability that Harley simply cannot match. The Goldwing is a more capable, more sophisticated, more reliable touring bike for thousands less, and yet people still buy Harleys based purely on brand image and cultural identity. BMW's R1250RT, their sport touring benchmark, costs around $18,000 MSRP, literally half the price of the Street Glide Limited. For that, you get a 1,254 cubic centimeters opposed twin engine, making 136 horsepower, 40-plus horsepower more than the Harley. You get shaft drive that's maintenance-free compared to Harley's belt that needs periodic replacement. You get BMW's electronically adjustable suspension that adapts to conditions and loads. You get cornering ABS and traction control as standard. You get quick shift up and down for seamless transmission operation. You get dynamic cruise control that maintains following distance in traffic. The R1250RT is more powerful, more sophisticated, more capable, and literally half the price of the Harley. The only thing it doesn't have is the Harley logo, and apparently people are willing to pay $15,000 extra just for that logo. Yamaha's Star Venture is another direct competitor in the touring segment. Pricing is typically around $26,000 to $28,000 depending on trim, $5,000 to $7,000 less than the Street Glide Limited. You get a 1,854 cubic centimeters V-twin, making 110 horsepower and 120 pound-feet, matching or exceeding the Harley's output. You get Yamaha reliability that's statistically superior to Harley. You get standard cruise control, heated grips, smartphone connectivity, and generous storage. You get a shaft drive system that eliminates belt maintenance. And you get Japanese build quality with fit and finish that equals Harley at a fraction of the price. The Venture doesn't have Harley's brand cachet or cultural resonance, but it's objectively a better value for touring use. Even within Harley's own used market, the pricing makes 0 cents. A 2023 Street Glide Special with 15,000 miles, essentially identical to the 2026 model in functionality and features, is selling on the used market for $19,000 to $22,000, depending on condition and options. That's $11,000 to $14,000 less than the new 2026 Street Glide Limited. The used bike has already absorbed the major depreciation hit, will depreciate more slowly going forward, and is functionally identical to the new bike. Any rational buyer should purchase the 3-year-old bike for $21,000 rather than the new bike for $37,000 out the door. You save $16,000 for a bike that's essentially the same. But Harley's pricing assumes that buyers are either irrational, they're financing and don't understand total cost, or they're so brand loyal that price is irrelevant. All three assumptions are increasingly false. The depreciation on new Harleys at these price points is catastrophic and makes the total cost of ownership absurdly high. Buy a Street Glide Limited for $37,000 out the door. Ride it for 3 years and put 20,000 to 30,000 miles on it. Sell it or trade it in. You'll get offers between $25,000 and $28,000 trade-in value or private party sale price. That's a loss of $9,000 to $12,000 over 3 years, $3,000 to $4,000 per year in depreciation alone. Add 3 years of insurance at probably $1,200 to $1,800 per year for full coverage on a $40,000 asset. That's another $3,600 to $5,400. Add maintenance, including oil changes, brake service, tire replacement, and regular service intervals. Probably another $2,500 to $3,500 over 3 years. Your total cost of ownership for 3 years is approximately $15,000 to $18,000 or $5,000 to $6,000 per year before. You've spent $1 on gas. Compare that to buying a 3-year-old used Street Glide for $21,000. Ride it for 3 years. Sell it for $16,000 to $18,000. Your depreciation is $3,000 to $5,000 over 3 years, $1,000 to $1,700 per year. Insurance is cheaper because you're insuring a $21,000 bike, not a $40,000 bike, maybe $1,000 to $1,200 per year or $3,000 to $3,600 total. Maintenance is the same as the new bike, $2,500 to $3,500. Total cost of ownership is approximately $9,000 to $12,000 over 3 years or $3,000 to $4,000 per year, saving you $2,000 to $3,000 per year compared to buying new. Over 10 years of continuous ownership with bikes being replaced every 3 years, that's $6,000 to $9,000 in savings just from avoiding new bike depreciation. The financing costs make new Harleys even more absurd for anyone who doesn't pay cash. Finance that $37,000 Street Glide Limited at current motorcycle interest rates of around 7 to 9% for 60 months. Your monthly payment is $730 to $770 per month. Over 5 years, you'll pay approximately $44,000 to $46,000 total, including interest, $9,000 to $10,000 just in interest charges. And at the end of 5 years, the bike is worth approximately $20,000 to $23,000, meaning you've paid $46,000 for an asset worth $21,000. A $25,000 economic loss. That's financially insane, throwing away $25,000 over 5 years for the privilege of owning a depreciating toy. But Harley's marketing carefully obscures this reality by advertising the monthly payment, not the total cost. $760 per month sounds manageable to someone earning decent income until you realize that's over $45,000 total for a motorcycle. The segment pricing context makes Harley's pricing even more delusional. $33,000 to $37,000 is luxury car territory. A well-equipped Honda Accord or Toyota Camry, practical family sedans with room for 5 and trunks for luggage, cost $30,000 to $35,000. A Mazda CX-5 or Honda CR-V, capable SUVs with all-wheel drive and weather protection, cost similar amounts. People are choosing between a Street Glide that seats 2, offers minimal weather protection, is useless in rain or winter, requires special gear and licensing, and costs thousands annually to maintain versus a car that their entire family can use year-round in all weather. Harley is pricing themselves as a luxury discretionary purchase, competing with cars, vacations, home improvements, and retirement savings, and losing that competition badly. The demographic crisis amplifies the pricing problem catastrophically. Harley's core customer base is men in their late 40s to mid-50s who are at peak earnings years and can theoretically afford $37,000 motorcycles. But that demographic is aging out of motorcycling and not being replaced by younger buyers. The average millennial or Gen Z buyer, who should be Harley's future customer base, is drowning in student loan debt averaging $30,000 to $40,000, paying $1,500 to $2,000 monthly for rent or mortgage in expensive markets, dealing with car payments and insurance and health insurance and childcare costs, and simply does not have discretionary income for $37,000 toys. The median personal income in America is around $40,000 to $45,000 per year. You're asking someone earning $45,000 annually to spend nearly a full year's gross income on a motorcycle. That's financially impossible for all but the wealthiest buyers. Even affluent younger buyers who could afford Harleys don't want them. They view Harleys as old man bikes associated with their parents' or grandparents' generation. The cruiser aesthetic doesn't appeal to younger riders who prefer sport bikes, adventure bikes, or retro standards. The loud pipe, chrome-heavy outlaw cosplay culture that Harley built its brand on is the opposite of cool to millennials and Gen Z. They want authenticity, not manufactured rebellion. They want technology and performance, not heritage and nostalgia. And they have options. Indian offers hipper alternatives. Japanese manufacturers offer better value and reliability. European brands offer prestige without the cultural baggage. Harley is attempting to charge premium prices to a demographic that's shrinking and not being replaced, and wondering why sales are collapsing. The dealer markup culture makes actual transaction prices even worse than MSRP suggests. During the COVID boom, when demand exceeded supply, dealers added $5,000 to $10,000 in markup above MSRP plus mandatory. Dealer-installed accessories and packages. A CVO Street Glide with $40,000 MSRP was selling for $52,000 to $55,000 out the door after markup, fees, taxes, and forced accessories. Dealers got addicted to those margins and that profit per unit. They built their budgets and expense structures assuming those margins would continue forever. When demand collapsed and inventory stacked up, dealers couldn't immediately adjust their margin expectations. Many dealers in 2024 and 2025 were still attempting to charge $2,000 to $3,000 in markup over MSRP, even though bikes were sitting on floors for 6 months, unsold. Only in late 2025 and early 2026 have most dealers finally accepted reality and started discounting below MSRP just to move inventory and reduce floor plan interest costs. But this discounting creates another problem for Harley. When customers see dealers advertising Street Glide specials at $3,000 to $4,000 below MSRP, they perceive that Harley's prices are inflated and negotiable. Nobody wants to pay MSRP when they know the dealer will discount. But those discounts come out of dealer margin, reducing dealer profitability and contributing to the dealer closure wave. Harley could solve this by reducing MSRP to realistic market clearing prices and reducing dealer margins proportionally. But that would require admitting their pricing is too high, which would hurt their premium brand positioning and create customer anger from recent buyers who paid full price. So instead, Harley maintains high MSRP, while dealers discount quietly, creating a chaotic pricing environment where nobody knows what anything actually costs and every transaction is a negotiation. The cost structure analysis proves Harley's pricing is margin extraction, not cost-based. Manufacturing cost for a Street Glide, including materials, labor, overhead, and allocated corporate expenses, is probably $12,000 to $15,000 per unit. That's the actual cost to design, engineer, manufacture, and deliver the physical motorcycle. Harley charges dealers around $24,000 to $27,000 wholesale for that bike, a markup of $9,000 to $12,000 or 60% to 80% above manufacturing cost. Dealers then sell to consumers at MSRP of $33,000, adding another $6,000 in markup, or roughly 25% dealer margin. The total markup from manufacturing cost to consumer price is $18,000 to $21,000, 130% to 140%. More than half of what you pay is pure profit margin for Harley and the dealer combined, and they're still struggling financially because volume is so low. If Harley priced Street Glides at $22,000 to $24,000 MSRP, still providing them with $6,000 to $8,000 profit margin per unit, which is healthy for a manufacturing business, and dealers sold at those prices with $3,000 to $4,000 margin, which is adequate for retail, consumers would pay $26,000 to $28,000 out the door. That's $9,000 to $11,000 less than current pricing. At those prices, sales volumes would increase substantially because more buyers could afford them, and the value proposition would improve dramatically. Harley's profit per unit would decline, but volume increases would offset that, and long-term brand health would improve. But Harley can't or won't make that transition because it would require admitting their current pricing is wrong, because it would devalue existing owners' bikes and create resentment, and because Wall Street would punish them for margin compression even if volume increased. The international pricing makes the U.S. pricing look even more absurd. In markets like India, Brazil, and Thailand, where Harley manufactures locally to avoid import tariffs and serve price-sensitive markets, Harley prices are substantially lower relative to U.S. MSRP when adjusted for purchasing power. Harley knows. They're overpricing in the U.S. market because they can't get away with it in international markets where consumers have less brand loyalty and more competitive alternatives. They're extracting maximum margin from American buyers who have emotional connections to the brand while pricing more realistically in markets where they have to compete purely on value. The feature for price comparison within motorcycling shows Harley falling behind even at their current prices, let alone if they raise them further. For $33,000, you can buy cutting-edge adventure bikes like the BMW R1250RT with radar cruise control, adaptive suspension, TFT displays, and touring capability that Harleys can't match. You can buy Ducati Multistrada 5 4S with 200 horsepower and MotoGP-derived technology. You can buy multiple mid-range bikes and have a stable. A Yamaha MT-09 for $10,000, a Kawasaki Versys 650 for $9,000, and a Honda Rebel 1100 for $10,000 gives you 3 bikes for different purposes for less than one Street Glide. The opportunity cost of buying a Harley at their current pricing is enormous. The used market flooding makes new bike pricing unsustainable. There are tens of thousands of used Harleys on the market from owners who bought during the COVID boom and are now trying to exit. Many are motivated sellers who need cash, are downsizing their toy collection due to economic pressure, or simply aren't riding and want to free up garage space. This creates massive downward pressure on used prices, which caps what dealers can pay on trade-ins, which makes customers feel like their bikes are worthless, which reduces willingness to buy new bikes that will depreciate just as badly. The glut of used inventory means anyone who wants a Harley can easily find good used options for half of new prices, eliminating any urgency to buy new at these inflated MSRPs. The tariff excuse that Harley uses to justify price increases doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Harley claims that Trump's tariffs on imported components, which hit approximately 30 to 40% of their parts, with 10% universal tariffs plus 25% motorcycle-specific tariffs in some cases, force them to raise prices to maintain margins. But even if 35% of a bike's cost faces 35% tariffs, that's 12% total cost increase on a $12,000 manufacturing cost, or about $1,400. Harley's raising prices by $1,000 to $2,000 per model while blaming tariffs that maybe cost them $1,400. They're using tariffs as cover for price increases that exceed their actual tariff costs. And rather than absorbing some tariff cost to maintain volume and market position, they're passing 100% to consumers, plus adding extra margin, prioritizing short-term profit over long-term sustainability. The pricing psychology reveals Harley's fundamental misunderstanding of their market position. Harley believes they have pricing power because they're an iconic American brand with loyal customers who will pay premiums for the logo and the heritage. That was true in the 1990s and 2000s when Harley had a waiting list for bikes and demand exceeded supply. It's not true today. Today's buyers are more price-conscious, more willing to cross-shop competitors, more knowledgeable from internet research, and less emotionally attached to brands. The 30-year-old considering their first cruiser doesn't care that their dad and grandfather rode Harleys. They care about value, reliability, features, and what their money gets them. Harley's pricing assumes brand loyalty that no longer exists at levels needed to sustain premium pricing. The competitive response to Harley's pricing has been strategic and devastating. Indian Motorcycle specifically prices their bikes at or slightly above Harley equivalents, while offering demonstrably more power, more features, and equal or better build quality. They're saying, "We're as good as Harley, but actually better, and we'll prove it for the same money." Customers test ride both, and many choose Indian because the performance difference is immediately apparent. Japanese manufacturers price below Harley by $5,000 to $10,000 while offering better reliability and lower maintenance costs. They're saying, "We're 80% as cool as Harley for 60% of the price, and you'll never be stranded." Customers who care more about practicality than image choose Japanese. European manufacturers price at or above Harley while offering legitimately superior technology and performance. They're saying, "We're more expensive but genuinely better," not just heritage marketing. Customers who want the best and can afford it choose European. Harley is stuck in the middle, too expensive for value buyers, not good enough for performance buyers, and losing cultural relevance with image buyers. The dealer profitability crisis stems directly from this pricing disconnect. Dealers need to sell bikes at high prices to cover their overhead and make profit. But customers won't pay those prices, so dealers discount. But discounting erodes margin, but overhead doesn't decrease. So dealers lose money on every bike they sell or barely break even. They try to make it up on finance, service, parts, and accessories, but even those revenue streams are under pressure. This is why 200 dealers are closing in 2026. The pricing structure is fundamentally broken. Harley can't lower wholesale prices without destroying their own profitability. Dealers can't raise retail prices without killing demand. And customers won't pay current prices in sufficient volume to sustain the network. It's a three-way standoff where everybody loses. The long-term viability question becomes acute at these price levels. Can Harley survive as a 200,000 unit per year manufacturer, selling bikes at $30,000 to $50,000 to an aging, shrinking customer base? The math doesn't work. 200,000 units at an average price of $25,000 wholesale is $5 billion in revenue. But Harley's cost structure was built for 350,000 units. They have excess manufacturing capacity, too many employees, too much overhead, and fixed costs that don't scale down proportionally with volume. They're losing money or barely breaking even on core operations while generating profit only from financial services and cost cutting. That's not sustainable long term. Eventually, they'll need to either radically reduce costs by closing plants and cutting staff, which will reduce capacity below what they need if demand ever recovers, or they need to increase volume by cutting prices, which destroys margins and might not work if the brand damage is too severe. The death spiral endgame is predictable from here. Harley maintains or raises prices slightly each year, trying to protect margin. Volume continues declining 5 to 10% annually as customers age out and aren't replaced. Market share erodes to Indian and others. Dealer network shrinks to 400 dealers or fewer by 2027. Used market stays flooded, keeping prices depressed. New bike buyers get increasingly scarce. By 2028, Harley is selling maybe 150,000 bikes globally at prices nobody wants to pay through a dealer network too small to provide adequate coverage. At that point, major restructuring becomes unavoidable. Plant closures, workforce reductions, possible merger or acquisition, or bankruptcy and reorganization. The Street Glide Limited, at $33,000, isn't just overpriced. It's a symbol of a company that's lost touch with its market and is pricing itself into oblivion. So here's what you need to understand about Harley's 2026 pricing, and specifically the Street Glide Limited at $33,000. It's delusional. It's disconnected from value delivered. It's double or triple what competitors charge for equivalent or superior bikes. It's pricing based on heritage and nostalgia rather than features and performance. It's unsustainable in a market where buyers are increasingly price-conscious and willing to cross-shop. It's accelerating Harley's death spiral by suppressing volume, which increases per-unit costs, which requires more price increases, which suppresses volume further. And it's ultimately going to fail because you can't charge premium prices without delivering premium value. And Harley stopped delivering premium value 20 years ago when competitors caught up or surpassed them on technology, reliability, and features. If you're considering a Street Glide Limited at $33,000 MSRP or $37,000 out the door, don't. Buy a 3-year-old used one for $21,000 and save $16,000, or buy an Indian Challenger for equivalent money and get a better bike, or buy a Honda Goldwing for $6,000 less and get dramatically more capability and reliability. Or wait 6 months and buy a leftover 2026 for $28,000 after dealers panic and slash prices to move inventory. Or don't buy at all and invest that $37,000 in literally anything else that will appreciate, or at least not lose $25,000 in value over 5 years. The only scenario where buying a new Street Glide Limited makes financial sense is if you're wealthy enough that $37,000 is irrelevant money and you just want the newest Harley, regardless of cost, because it's a toy and you don't care about value. For everyone else, it's financial suicide. Harley-Davidson has become what they always feared, a company selling overpriced nostalgia to aging boomers with nothing to offer younger buyers and no plan to fix it except raising prices more and hoping someone pays. The Street Glide, limited at $33,000, is the perfect encapsulation of everything wrong with Harley's business strategy: pricing that makes zero economic sense, defended by appeals to heritage that younger buyers don't care about and older buyers can't afford. Tomorrow we'll know if Q4 earnings show any signs of improvement or if the sales collapse continued through year-end. But regardless of what the numbers say, the pricing is indefensible and unsustainable, and everyone except Harley management seems to understand that. Drop a comment if you've seen Street Glide sitting on dealer floors for months with price stickers that make you laugh. Tell us what you'd actually pay for a 2026 Street Glide Limited if you were buying. And if you work at Harley or a dealer and want to anonymously explain how pricing decisions get made, reach out because we want to understand the internal logic that justifies this insanity. If this breakdown of Harley's delusional pricing opened your eyes to why sales are collapsing and dealers are closing, hit like and subscribe for more honest analysis of the motorcycle industry's ongoing implosion that nobody else will tell you.